At a children's party, my husband said, "I'd rather have a vasectomy than raise my children with all this negativity." And everyone laughed. And I stood there with a plate of cake while they made a joke out of me. That day I realized, I will not be silent anymore. Hi, I'm Lauren, 32, a marketing manager at a startup in Austin. And last weekend at his niece's birthday party, surrounded by piñatas, streamers, and the shrieks of sugar-drunk toddlers, I realized I was married to a man who only respected me when no one else was watching. We met in a broken-down escalator at Penn Station. Not poetic, just chaotic. I was flustered, late, coffee dripping down my coat. He cracked some dumb line about us being captives of the transit gods. I laughed even though I wanted to cry. Somehow that became lunch. Then dinner. Then a wedding in a borrowed garden with fairy lights and big promises. And now? Now I was standing in a stranger's backyard, holding a paper plate of melting cake, while the man I married turned me into the joke of the day. It started when someone, maybe his aunt, maybe some cousins plus one, asked if we were planning to have kids soon. I gave the standard safe answer. We're just figuring things out right now. And Blake? He laughed, glanced at the crowd and said, "With Lauren? I think I'd rather schedule a vasectomy. Less painful than parenting with all that passive-aggressive energy." Laughter. Real laughter. I blinked. My ears buzzed. My body didn't move, but inside something dropped. Fast. Like an elevator cable snapping. His sister Rachel chimed in naturally. "Please. If Lauren had a baby, it'd come out holding a notepad and asking for performance reviews." Everyone thought that was hilarious. Even his mom. I didn't say anything. Just stared at the frosting on my fork and waited for the ground to swallow me. And Blake? He just kept smiling like he'd crushed open Mike Knight. When I finally stepped away, I didn't run. I walked, carefully, with dignity, through the pink balloons and folding chairs and out the side gate. He followed. "Lauren, really?" he said. "It was a joke. Don't be so sensitive." And then that hand on my arm. Gentle but firm. A touch that didn't say I care, but I control. That's when it hit me. This wasn't new. This was just the first time I wasn't swallowing it. This was the first time I saw it for what it was. Not a joke. A message. And I was done pretending I didn't hear it. I sat in my car outside the shower for 37 minutes. Engine off, fingers clenched around the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I couldn't bring myself to drive. Couldn't even cry. Just stared ahead at a row of flamingo lawn ornaments and wondered how the hell I'd ended up here. Married to a man who mocked me like a stranger on Twitter. The worst part wasn't what Blake said. It was that everyone laughed. Like I was an old joke they'd all been waiting to finish. Like I didn't matter. Not as a wife, not as a woman, not as a human being. When we got married, I knew his family was close. The kind of we have a family group chat that pings 83 times before lunch close. I thought it was endearing. I grew up with silence at the dinner table, so their chaos felt alive. Loud, warm, cluttered with inside jokes and matching pajama pictures. I wanted to belong, but I never did. They called me the serious one. Said I was too intense, too opinionated. That I overanalyzed everything. First I laughed it off. Then I tried harder. I baked from scratch for their cookouts. I hosted trivia nights. I went to Kelly's MLM parties and pretended to care about collagen powder. I swallowed it all because I thought that's what people do when they marry into a big family. They bend a little. I didn't realize I was breaking. Blake knew it hurt me. He always said the same thing. "That's just how they are, babe. Don't take it personally." But it was personal. It was always personal. And now, sitting in my parked car, I realized something else. Blake never defended me because deep down he agreed with them. He liked being the funny one, the easygoing one, the guy whose wife was too much. He wore my discomfort like a badge, proof that he was more relaxed, more likable, more fun. My phone buzzed. "Kelly, girl, you okay? Don't take Blake's jokes so hard. You know he loves you." The nerve. The sheer tone-deaf audacity. I didn't respond. Instead I scrolled back. Through old texts. Through years of tiny humiliations I'd let slide. The time they changed my name in the group chat to Lauren Order. And posted judge emojis every time I spoke. The time Blake's mom told me at Thanksgiving that some women just aren't meant for motherhood. And Blake laughed. I hadn't noticed how heavy it had gotten. All the little things I carried. Every just joking, every lighten up, every side-eyed glance when I voiced an opinion. That night Blake came home like nothing happened. Kicked off his shoes, turned on the game, asked if I wanted takeout. I stood in the kitchen, arms folded, watching him casually scroll on his phone like the world hadn't shifted sideways. "I'm not doing this anymore," I said. My voice cracked halfway through. He looked up confused. "Doing what?" I gestured vaguely, helplessly at the air. "This. Being your family's punching bag. Being married to someone who thinks disrespect is funny." His face hardened just a flicker. "Lauren, you're blowing this way out of." "No," I stepped back. "I'm finally seeing it clearly." He didn't apologize. He just sighed like I was being difficult again. I slept in the guest room that night, curled up under a stiff comforter that smelled like dust and cedar. I stared at the ceiling for hours, blinking against the flood I'd kept dammed up for too long. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I texted my sister. Me. "Can I stay with you for a few days?" Her. "Always." I didn't leave the next morning. I waited 2 more days. 2 days of silence. Of cold glances and clattering dishes and pretending like we were fine. But we weren't. We hadn't been for a while. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. The final straw came in the group chat. I sent a message, carefully worded, asking for boundaries. Respect. I said I didn't find the jokes funny, that I felt hurt, excluded. They replied with a meme. A stupid, low-res meme of a woman drowning in a glass of water with the caption, "Some people can't take a joke." And Blake? He reacted with a laughing emoji. That was it. That was the moment I knew. I was married to a man who thought respect was optional. And I was done begging for the bare minimum. The day I packed my suitcase, Blake watched from the hallway with his arms crossed like I was the one breaking something. "You're really doing this?" he asked, voice flat. "Over a few jokes?" I didn't answer. I was too busy folding socks with shaking hands, trying not to cry into my old college hoodie. That morning, I'd stared at my toothbrush for 5 minutes before realizing I hadn't even put toothpaste on it. My brain felt like fog, like I was dreaming underwater. It wasn't just the jokes. It was everything behind them. The contempt buried in smiles. The casual way he'd let me twist in the wind for years. The way I kept trying to prove I was worth basic human kindness, and he kept laughing like it was a performance. I zipped the suitcase slowly, the sound way too loud in the silence. "I just think this is dramatic," he added. "You could have talked to me instead of throwing a tantrum." That word. Tantrum. Like I was a child. Like asking not to be publicly humiliated made me immature. I turned and looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time he didn't look like my husband. He looked like a stranger I'd once loved. Like a guy I met in a broken elevator who made dumb jokes to make me laugh and then slowly stopped being kind. "I did talk to you," I said. "For years." His face changed, but just a little. A flicker of something, guilt maybe, before it hardened again. He looked past me like I wasn't worth the effort. "You need help," he muttered. "This is some next-level insecurity." I walked past him, dragging the suitcase over the hardwood like an anchor. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just left. My sister met me at the curb. No words. Just a hug that cracked something open in my chest. Her house smelled like vanilla and detergent, and when I walked in, she already had a mug of tea waiting on the kitchen counter. It said Badass Women Club. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. The breakdown didn't come right away. It waited until 3 a.m., when I was alone on the pull-out couch, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Me and Blake at the zoo. Blake and my sister at our wedding. Me in that yellow sundress he once said made me look too intense for a summer picnic. Suddenly I couldn't breathe. I sat up, chest heaving, heart hammering like I'd run miles. I pressed my face into a pillow and screamed. Not loud. I didn't want to wake my sister, but raw. Guttural. Like dragging grief out of my stomach with my bare hands. Because I didn't want this. I didn't want a divorce. I wanted the man from the elevator. I wanted a family that didn't treat me like a burden. I wanted to belong. But what I wanted and what I had were miles apart. And maybe they always had been. The next day, my sister took me to brunch and slid a plate of lemon ricotta pancakes across the table. I stared at them for 10 minutes, appetite gone. "I don't get it," I whispered. Why didn't he defend me? She leaned forward. Because he liked it. That hit harder than I thought it would. He liked being the good guy, she continued. The fun one. You made him look serious by comparison. He didn't want that. So they turned you into the joke. And he let them. Because every time they laughed at you, they were bonding with him. It made too much sense. It made me sick. For the next 3 days it was war by group chat. Kelly posted a boomerang of Blake holding a beer with the caption, "Single night with the boys." His cousin commented, "Dodged a bullet, huh?" with a laughing emoji. I hadn't even filed anything yet, but they were already rewriting the story, making me the villain in a play I hadn't auditioned for. I tried to defend myself once. I posted, "Respect isn't optional. Not in marriage. Not in family." They replied with a gif of a cat typing furiously, then added, "Lauren's writing her manifestos again." That night, I found out Kelly had screenshot my private messages and shared them in the family thread. She even added Comic Sans captions. My pain. In Comic Sans. That's when something shifted in me. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't begging. I was planning. Because if they wanted a show, I was going to give them one. But not the kind they expected. I found a lawyer. Quietly. I made a list, printed it out, of every slight, every dig, every wound I'd let fester. And then I RSVP'd to Blake's mother's so-called family reconciliation dinner. And this time, I wouldn't come alone. The invitation said, "Casual." The text from Blake's mom said, "Hope everyone can be mature and come with open hearts." I showed up in all black. Not because I was mourning the marriage. I'd done enough of that on my sister's couch with ice cream and reality TV, but because I wanted them to see it. The funeral of my silence. The burial of their little doormat doll they used to prop up their family dysfunction. I wore a black midi dress. Heels. A sleek ponytail. No jewelry except my wedding ring still on for now. My sister came with me. She wore a t-shirt that said, "Not today, Satan." She was my ride or die, and I needed her there like armor. We pulled up to Blake's parents' suburban fortress, that weirdly perfect beige house with the flagpole and plastic goose on the porch, the kind of house where nothing bad was supposed to happen. But behind that shiny red door? That's where the rot lived. Inside, the table was already set. Name cards. Lasagna. Candles. It looked like peace, but it smelled like war. Blake's mom opened the door. Gave me the kind of smile you'd give a funeral guest you don't really like. "Lauren. Thank you for coming. And Emily," she added, nodding at my sister like she wasn't sure what to do with her. Emily just smiled and said, "Don't worry, I brought receipts." We sat down. I didn't touch the food. Blake was already there. Slouched in his seat like a kid dragged to detention. He looked tired. But not sorry. Not really. Just inconvenienced. His mom cleared her throat. "Before we eat, I just wanted to say how grateful I am that we can come together tonight as a family. There's been a lot of tension, but I believe if we all apologize and really listen, we can heal." Kelly spoke next. "I think we all said things that were taken out of context." I pulled the list out of my bag and laid it flat on the table. It was 4 pages. Bullet points. Timestamps. Quotes. "Let's skip the vagueness," I said, my voice steady. "Here's what was actually said. Here's what was done. Here's how you treated me. And here's how he let you." I looked at Blake. His face went blank. That practiced emotional shutdown I'd seen 100 times when I dared ask for something inconvenient, like basic decency. "Lauren, seriously?" he muttered. "What are you trying to do here?" His mom looked horrified. Kelly looked like she was already drafting a group chat about this. And I took out the envelope. White. Thick. Neatly sealed. I slid it across the table toward Blake. "What's this?" he asked, not picking it up. "Divorce papers." Silence. Not just quiet, real silence. You could hear the fridge humming. Someone's fork scraped a plate like it was the only sound left in the world. Then he laughed. Laughed. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious," I said. "Come on, Lauren. This is insane. You're going to ruin everything over a few jokes? Over my family being themselves?" "No," I said, standing. "I'm just refusing to play along anymore." That's when the begging started. Right there. in front of everyone. His voice rising, eyes wild, pleading, not with love but with panic, with embarrassment, like he was losing his image, not his wife. His mom said, "Let's all calm down. Maybe we don't have to do anything drastic tonight." I looked at her and said, "Respect isn't drastic. It's basic. And if I have to choose between peace and pretending, I'll pick peace every time." I turned to Blake. He looked small now, like the joke had finally worn off and the punchline was him, standing there without the woman he never thought would leave. I walked out. My sister followed. The air outside felt cold, sharp, clean. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just got in the car and whispered, "It's over." Emily looked at me. That was the single most badass thing I've ever seen. I laughed, not the brittle, forced kind I'd gotten used to. A real one. Deep and stunned, like I'd found it buried under rubble. And just like that, the wreckage became a beginning. The weirdest part about leaving wasn't the silence. It was the echo. That phantom voice in my head, Blake's voice, saying, "You're being too sensitive," every time I breathed wrong. Every time I took a step toward myself. I moved back into my childhood bedroom. Peach walls. Posters from a life I'd outgrown. A closet that still smelled faintly like middle school perfume and old notebooks. My mom made casseroles every night, like feeding me might fix what was broken. It didn't. I stared at my phone more than I want to admit. Kept expecting it to buzz with something meaningful. A real apology. A moment of clarity. Anything. What I got instead were pings from the family group chat I'd been booted from. My sister was still in it. She sent me screenshots. Kelly had changed the group photo to a cartoon of a trash can with eyes. The caption underneath read, "Let's take out the drama." Blake never told them to stop. He never told them to stop. My sister tried to make me laugh. She baked cookies shaped like broken hearts and wrote, "By Blake," in icing. But late at night, when the house was still, I'd lie on my back and stare at the ceiling fan spinning above me and wonder if I'd made everything worse. What if I was too much? What if I was the problem? I thought about the early days. How he used to text me every morning. How he once brought soup to my office when I had the flu, sitting on the floor while I slept just to be near me. That man was real once. Wasn't he? Or had I imagined him? My phone rang one night. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Blake. "Hey. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just wanted to say I miss you. I've been thinking about everything. Maybe we could talk. Just talk." For a split second, I almost called him back. That's how grief works. It tricks you. It shows you only the good, wrapped in soft-focused nostalgia. It edits out the bruises, the jokes at your expense, the feeling of your hand being grabbed just hard enough to stop you, but soft enough to deny it later. I didn't call him. Instead, I opened my laptop and filed the paperwork. For real this time. The clerk called it uncontested, as if that word could contain the war that had raged inside me for months. It rained that day. Not dramatically, just a quiet, drizzly gray. I stood outside the courthouse with my hoodie pulled tight, breathing in the damp smell of earth and pavement. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel watched, or mocked, or shrinking. I just felt alone. But it wasn't empty. It was open. 3 days after I filed, Blake showed up at my mom's house. Unannounced. Uninvited. Unbelievable. I saw his car from the upstairs window, that stupid white SUV with the dented bumper he never got fixed. He stood on the porch like he owned it, like the last 2 weeks hadn't happened, like I was still his to retrieve. I didn't go to the door. My mom did. I heard her voice through the floorboards, calm, sharp. "She doesn't want to see you, Blake. I just want to talk." She said everything she needed to say. Then silence. Then the door closing. I stood in my old bedroom shaking. Not because I was scared, because I was furious. That he would show up here after everything, expecting me to fold. To soften. To be the version of me that made life easier for him. He texted me an hour later. "Blake, you could have at least come down. After everything we've been through." Me, "You mean everything I've been through while you stood there and laughed?" "Blake, you're being cold." Me, "I've been set on fire for years and you're mad I don't feel like hugging the match." I blocked his number. That night, I took a long walk alone. No headphones. No distractions. Just the rhythmic sound of my boots on cracked sidewalks and the smell of wet leaves. And I let myself feel it. The rage. Not just at him but at me too. For staying quiet. for minimizing my hurt to make everyone else comfortable, for gaslighting myself into thinking I was oversensitive, dramatic, ungrateful. I wasn't any of those things. I was a woman who asked for kindness and got sarcasm, who asked for respect and got performance, who gave her whole heart and got handed back a joke. They could laugh all they wanted. Blake's family could meme and mock and reframe it however they needed to so they didn't have to sit with their own ugliness. But I wasn't going to sit in it anymore. I was done being the punchline. So I started writing. Not to him, to me. I filled a notebook with everything I hadn't said out loud. Every insult I absorbed. Every time I bit my tongue until it bled. Every room I left in silence. Every night I spent pretending I wasn't crumbling. I wrote until my wrist hurt. Until the rage melted into clarity. And then I ripped out the pages, folded them once, and burned them in my mom's fire it under a clear night sky. Ashes floated up into the stars like tiny pieces of everything I refused to carry anymore. I watched them disappear and whispered, never again. That was the moment I stopped waiting to be understood. That was the moment I chose myself. The day the divorce was finalized, I bought myself flowers. Not roses. Too romantic. Not lilies, they always felt like funeral homes. I got sunflowers. Big, bright, unapologetic sunflowers. I walked them home in my arms like a trophy. Like a prize I'd earned just by surviving. My sister made a cake. Chocolate, messy, lopsided, with bright pink frosting that said, "Congrats on your emotional freedom." We ate it with forks straight from the pan, sitting on the floor like kids at a sleepover. She put on some terrible rom-com from the early 2000s, and we laughed until our stomachs hurt. There was no big parade. No cinematic swelling music. Just a quiet, persistent warmth in my chest. The kind that tells you the worst is over, even if healing still takes time. But I felt it. Peace. Not the kind you fake to avoid conflict. Not the brittle kind you keep in place by swallowing your voice. This was real. Solid. Mine. I went back to work. Got a raise 2 weeks later. My boss said, "You seem lighter lately." I smiled. Yeah. I took out the trash. I changed my number. Deleted the group chat thread I'd kept screenshotting like evidence in a trial I no longer needed to win. Let them talk. Let them laugh. Let them rot in their little echo chamber of petty cruelty. I wasn't in the audience anymore. Blake never apologized. Not really. He sent one last email. "I hope one day you realize how much you overreacted." I didn't respond. I forwarded it to myself, labeled the folder, proof I made the right choice, and archived it forever. A few weeks later, I moved into a new apartment. Tiny. Light-filled. My own. The first night, I sat on the kitchen counter eating cold pizza, watching the headlights outside paint gold streaks across my bare walls. And I wasn't lonely. I was alone. On purpose. With space to breathe. To become someone new. Or maybe just someone I'd been all along, buried under years of trying to belong where I wasn't wanted. And I realized something. All that time I thought I was too much. It wasn't me. It was that they were too little. Too little empathy. Too little maturity. Too little respect for a woman who only ever asked to be seen, heard, loved like a human being. Now I'm writing this from my kitchen table. There's music playing. My feet are bare. The air smells like fresh bread and lavender candles. And my sister just texted. "What do you want the next cake to say?" I smiled. Something simple. How about, "She never went back." Because I didn't. And I won't. Not to him. Not to them. Not to the version of me who thought being loved meant being quiet. I've found something better now. Me.